State police investigating 17-year-old death of prosecutor Jonathan Luna previously called a suicide. He was stabbed 36 times. How do you possibly close a case and call it suicide when someone is stabbed 36 times? The Pennsylvania State Police and Federal Bureau of Investigation are still investigating the 2003 death of a federal prosecutor whose body was discovered in Lancaster County, a state trooper testified in court Wednesday. The status of the 17-year-old case is a deciding factor in whether a judge will order the release of recently discovered records. Jonathan Luna, 38, an assistant U.S. attorney from Baltimore, was found dead on December 4, 2003, in a stream by Dry Tavern Road in Brecknock Township. The married father of two had traveled 95 miles from his home after a late night at work and died from 36 stab wounds. Trooper Chad Roberts, who heads the Lancaster County area's Criminal Investigations Unit for Homicides, Missing Persons and Cold Cases, testified during a court hearing in LNP Media Group's bid to unseal recently discovered records in the case. LNP Media Group is the publisher of LNP, Lancaster Online. Lancaster County's archives, where the Luna files were found, house the history of the county's government, video. Local news Lancaster County's archives, where the Luna files were found, house the history of the county's government, video. Dan Neffen, staff writer. The records at issue in Wednesday's testimony were sealed shortly after their late January discovery in the county's archives, under concerns from the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office that their release would jeopardize an active investigation. The county's coroner and solicitor offices had previously expressed belief that the records were missing or with the FBI, but had actually had access to them for more than a decade in its own archive. Lancaster County President Judge David Ashworth held Wednesday's hearing to allow the district attorney's office to show there is an open and active investigation into Luna's death. But Wednesday's biggest revelation is that the FBI is still investigating and has a special agent assigned to the case that Roberts spoke to as recently as this year. The FBI previously said the case was closed administratively and that federal authorities believed it was a suicide, according to a 2013 Washington Post report.
FBI Baltimore Special Agent John Krajnik is assigned to the case, Roberts said. Reached Wednesday, Krajnik referred comment to the FBI spokesperson. Efforts to reach the spokesperson were unsuccessful. All FBI investigations are listed as open or closed. Only investigations that have been solved or are past the statute of limitations are listed as closed. Homicide cases, such as the Luna investigation, do not have a statute of limitations, Roberts testified Wednesday. All other cases are considered open. Lancaster County has 40 open cold cases, dating to 1940, Roberts said. There are 541 cold cases handled by state police statewide. Would releasing coroner's records in Jonathan Luna case hinder 2003 death investigation? Judge to weigh in. Roberts pointed to the murder charges filed in 2018 in the 1992 murder of school teacher Christine Rack. Raymond D.J. Fries-Rowe was charged decades after murdering Rack, following DNA evidence matched DNA Rowe's sister uploaded to a genealogy website. This is an example of a cold case that was solved, and releasing any investigatory evidence ahead of time could have jeopardized that, Roberts said.
Was Robin Renee Abrams murdered by her ex-boyfriend/police officer?
Robin Renee Abrams began dating a married police officer, Anthony Marquez, in 1987 when she was 28 years old and he was in his 40s. They met when Robin was working at a McDonald's in Beecher, Illinois, and in 1988, Anthony convinced her to apply for a job at the sheriff's department. She was hired as a deputy and shortly after, she ended her relationship with Anthony. Some sources suggest that this was because she found out he was married, and others suggest it was as a result of Anthony's behavior. She filed a complaint against him, alleging that he had harassed her and slashed her tires on 4 occasions. This would be the first of many accusations of harassment and criminal damage on both sides. Only a month after Robin's complaint, which was dismissed due to lack of evidence, and 2 weeks before her probationary period at the sheriff's department was due to end, her employment was terminated. After this, accusations on both sides continued, concluding in Robin eventually getting a restraining order against Anthony in November 1989. A month later, she filed a federal lawsuit against Anthony, as well as 7 of his colleagues at the sheriff's department, accusing them of wrongful termination, sexual harassment, and violation of her civil rights. The trial was due to begin on 22nd of October 1990, however Robin never showed up, as she vanished 18 days before this, and has never been seen since. Robin's car was found in Harvey, Illinois. The doors were locked, the keys were still in the ignition, and her camera was inside. A witness later stated that two men in a tow truck had dropped the car off at around 10 p.m. on 4th of October 1990. 3 days later, Robin's purse was found in a residential area, 3 blocks away from where her car was found, with the credit cards missing. No more evidence or a body has ever been found, so what happened to Robin Abrams? There seems to be 2 main theories. Robin was murdered. To me, it seems pretty likely that Anthony, possibly with the help of his colleagues, murdered Robin to prevent her testifying against them. It's also been suggested that Anthony's stepbrother was involved too. Beyond circumstantial evidence, such as Anthony and Robin both being seen in the same gas station on the day of her disappearance, there is no hard evidence tying Anthony to Robin's disappearance. But he's a police officer, and potentially had help from other officers. How hard would it be for them to make someone disappear without evidence? From the off, the police were never too concerned with solving this case. Various experts offered their help over the years and were turned down.
Gail Delano went missing in 1987 and wasn't heard from again. Until it was discovered that she'd staged her own disappearance, flew to another part of the country, and took her own life.
I just want to preface this by saying that Gail's disappearance was solved over 30 years ago, and there probably doesn't seem like there'd be much left to discuss. But I recently rewatched the original Unsolved Mysteries episode on her and it's been on my mind ever since. That's partly because her story is so sad and tragic, and I can really relate to certain elements of it. But it's also because I have a few lingering questions about her case and wondered if anyone could provide some insight. If you're not familiar with Gail's story, here it is in a nutshell. At the time of her disappearance, Gail was depressed, lonely, and unhappy with where she was in life both figuratively and literally. She lived as Maine with her 2 teenage sons, who were getting older and spending less time at home. To combat the loneliness, Gail placed ads in the personals column in hopes of meeting that special someone. Typically before meeting up in person with men from the ads, Gail would talk to them on the phone. It was discovered later that she kept detailed records of everyone she spoke to and went out with ... except for John, the man she claimed to be meeting the day she went missing. Her sons said she talked to John for 2 hours on the phone the night before, but were unable to confirm if the person was indeed John, or if she was even speaking to anyone at all. On the day of her date with John, Gail went to meet him at a local restaurant. She never came home. A day or 2 later, her car, keys, and purse were found scattered in different places around the restaurant parking lot. Police interviewed men she had gone out with in previous months but found no John. Baffled, Gail's family turned to Unsolved Mysteries to help solve the case. When her story aired on a trucker came forward and claimed to have picked up Gail at a truck stop in Georgia. That information didn't lead anywhere. Then a forensic pathologist who had examined Gail at the time of her death, her body went unidentified because she had registered at the hotel under a fake name, Jackie Stafford, contacted the call center and said Gail was a Jane Doe who had committed suicide in a hotel in Mobile, Alabama shortly after she was reported missing. She had taken her own life by overdosing on prescription drugs. At that point police theorized that she had staged everything, invented John, drove to the restaurant and abandoned her car and other items to make it look like foul play, then flew to Alabama and took her life.